Welcome back, Keepers of the Flame. Okay, so so when we are tilling our soil to make room for the new seeds that we want to plant there, we get all the stuff out of there that grew anything old, right? We take out the sticks and the stones naturally, but any soil that was left growing, anything that has to do with these systems or maybe trying to rebirth and bring in from the past, that needs to be tended. We can't bring anything from the past forward with us. It's not a good idea. And I'm not talking about family, homes, pets. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about ideologically, spiritually, whatever. We have to give space to the new. So till everything out, bring what you were planning on bringing, look at your things that I told you to look at, where are these seeds of complete and utter abomination coming from? And how do I not put them in my garden? How do I just, we're going to leave that in the past. So, and again, you have to look at those places in yourself where do you, a lot of white women hate is a huge thing right now. Of course, we can't talk about that because it pisses off everybody who's not. So, as in the past, and we're just going to deal with it in our circles, and that's how we're going to deal with it. Okay? So, but that's just the thing it's not that we're not allowed to honor trauma, it's that we can't do it on a public space. Okay? There's a lot of white women circles that are getting into the generational trauma, okay? Because that needs to be healed as we're moving forward too. Okay, that's a huge part of moving forward, is healing that generational trauma. And again, I do not recommend you talk about it on a platform, because hatred will sprout. And then you're gonna be like, well, there's something I need to take back to my white woman circle that I don't really sorry, my kitty cat's having fun. I don't have a space here to talk about. Okay, so honoring those different aspects of life, and if you're a white man, you might need to have like a group circle of spiritual men who are not on the outside, because there's a lot of generational trauma that we are literally shamed for having to bring up and talk about. It's a victim competition, and we are not allowed to have a voice. So we need to take those into the circles and create safe spaces, because that generational trauma has been shamed into shut down. So this is why it keeps reproducing itself out in society. We have a whole slew of people who have been victimized and do need to talk about it, and it's all the minorities and whatever else. But what they don't conceive of is that this whole trauma system was put on everyone who is not of a certain tax bracket, and they will not see that, and they will not honor any pale-skinned person talking about generational trauma that was passed down. So we need to find those safe spaces and cultivate that this week. We have to dig that out of our own soil and say, okay, we can be finished with this, we can leave it in the past, and we can emotionally acknowledge it and work through it. I cannot stress this enough. White people, get your generational trauma under a microscope. It's a bitch, and I know there's a shit ton of it, and I know that it's real and it's raw, especially right now. It's fucking raw. And so let's really dig into that this week, because if we can cultivate that soil correctly, those seeds for the future that are going to enable true humanity to come forth rather than this narration. You know, you need to see it through my view. Okay, I'm trying, but I have my other stuff to deal with. Okay, so remembering that, honoring that, and not shaming yourself for having to do that inner work. You have to look at that stuff, okay? Because it has been shut down so hard by other groups. We have to look at it now. We cannot afford to bring it into the future. And because we're not allowed to discuss it on social media without someone in a minority screaming in our face that we have no right to have a voice, God, we've got to go into those deep, dark spaces and say, you know what? We don't need to bring this forward with us. But we can't grieve in public. We are not allowed to discuss the traumatic, horrific things that we paid witness to because we are outranked on the victimhood narrative. Okay? So when we can get into those sacred spaces where we feel safe to go, you know what? When I was growing up, oh my God, the people around me used these words like they were nothing. And we need to look at those things, and we need to catch those things within ourselves, and we need to cultivate a safe space where we can say, okay, this happened and it was normalized, and this happened and nobody said anything about it, and that was said, and this was talked about, and grandpappy blah 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 blah, and blah blah blah, my daddy said. All this needs to come up. And no, it cannot be on social media. It cannot, because it'll re-traumatize you, and then you'll not want to deal with it at all. So it needs to be done in those safe circles, even if it's in a notebook. Get it all out on paper and look at it honestly, because it's that's the sad part, is a lot of white men really need this work right now, and they're just off in oblivion. But that's not, that's their choice. But they could use some assistance when it comes to going, yeah, saying those things was planting little seeds of shit that sprouted out. Okay, and then by neglect, because we weren't able to assess them and look at them, because white people were only allowed to feel the shame and the guilt for everything. They couldn't actually get in there and see. This is how hate works against the entire human race. So when you are told you can't go back there and go, where did it get planted? How did it get there? What do I need to do with it? How do I, do I got to go get the shovel to uproot this? Okay, whatever it is for you, please, 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 this week, assess it. Please. Okay, we don't need to bring it with us in the future. For your own personal safety, do not do any assessments. You will not receive public support, even from white people. Okay, but that does need to be cultivated and reassessed and vetted into a burn pile, metaphorically, if you will, to, be released and let go of. It's super important this week because we have a different future to develop, and that's not going to be allowed to come with us. So if it's still growing in your garden, when we get to the future, you're going to have a much more difficult time adjusting. Just putting it out there, okay? So now that that's out of the way, because that's really stressful, I'm sure I'm going to get, if this ever gets anywhere, I'll get fucking hate comments. Listen here, you dumb white bitch. Try me. I've heard it all before. So if not to myself, I've read comment sections where white people were trying to do self-assessments, and goddamn, that is a very large chemtrail. Cheese and freaking rice. Anyway, wow. Those two. Jim Lee at climateviewer.com if you want to go investigate that. The amount of things that we can vet out of our ancestral garden that contributed to the snotty state we find ourselves in again, the less it'll be able to grow in the future. So if we stop fertilizing it, we vet out all the seeds, we pluck the weeds out, and leave it where it belongs, which is, it doesn't even belong in fucking history, but we do need to have access to it so we can say, hey, let's not fuck around and find out again. And so moving forward, we have that space open in our garden for new things to grow, for humanity to take a completely different nuance to life, one that we've not seen before, because that's what's being birthed right now. It's not a, oh, we're gonna bring this back, oh, matriarchy, oh, goddesshood. That is over. It had its run. It's over, boys and girls. There's no women taking over the globe, dude. Okay? I have a very deep intuitive sense that this whole thing has been severely suppressed, that like the Y chromosome thing and whatever else going extinct. I think androgyny is coming so hot and heavy onto the planet that it's ridiculous. And that's what we're gonna have, because we don't have any history books on that. We should have history books on that, but we don't, because that's where we came from. Adam was the alien. That's my cat, so Fei climbing up on her. She's like, I don't want to sit here. I don't want to listen to you talk. I want to listen up here. So she's in front of a window. Who's this kid anyways? So just keep that in mind, that nothing from the past is coming forward. Matriarchy had its run, patriarchy had its run, and before we had matriarchy, we had androgyny. Don't tell the Abrahamics to lose their shit. Men have always been on top. No, that was just Adam's requirement, and that's why Lily left. At least that's how the original narrative was written. Dingle Dangle, where is that book? Lilith, Keepers of the Flame by Mary Blue. I am not sure. I used to have. Arrogant Ape. It's still in my bed. Okay. But that needs to be assessed too. As like, nothing from the past is being taken forward. Okay? That's the problem. Is we're like, what? So all of those little things from the past are tethered to, let's just say, bad writers. Let's go bad writers. Bad writers are tethering terrible things together in the past. So if you bring, oh, but I really like blah 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 blah. Okay, that's fine that you like that. Take that energy with you, but leave the narrative. Okay, and that's the trouble we're going to get into. Yes, leave the documentation of the narrative, so we can be like, that was sheer fuckery that we manifested with that narrative. Don't touch it. Okay, but in the future, we are going to have to give birth to a new story. This is what humanity did. So the crucial part to this process is that you're not handing it over to some authority to bludgeon you with later. How many times we got to go through this, boys and girls? Stop giving your authority, your autonomy, your sovereignty away to some authority figure so they can bludgeon you later. Stop doing that. This is how we get effed with no lube. We give power and authority to people who have no fucking iota of what to do with it, number one. And number two, no right to have it in the first place, other than some sort of creepy bloodline. And when I say creepy, I mean creepy crawly, okay? As in like parasitic bloodline. This is why the planet is in such a state that it is right now, okay? They parasite the freaking resources. They and they, slave labor the human bodies. They just demolished anything natural here. To the extent of we now have to like not only pick up the rubble, but we have to start over from scratch. We've got to start over from scratch because they just fucked it so hard. Okay? We're going to have to come to terms that everything that we were told, it has fucked us. It's completely fucked us, and we need to stop taking any little, I don't care if it's a goddess, I don't care if it's a whatever. You just need to see through the narrative and say, yeah, I can see how that would have fucked us really bad. So let's, rather than holding on to the narrative and manifesting it, create something new. So if you had a narrative that, like, you know, the devil made me do it, or Scarface Sky Daddy blessed me instead of anybody else. So when you are given that illusion of power, the illusion of authority, the illusion that you know better than anybody else, you are going to play that out. And there's going to be, dun dun dun, someone that comes into your whatchamacallit that is more authoritative than you, and they will smite you the way you've smited everybody else. Okay? So stop giving your authority away to other people. Okay? Stop saying, oh, this person made me do this, or this entity said I had to do this, or the devil got in. No, you allowed that narrative to take over your system, and then you produce the outcome that aligns with that narrative. If you want a different outcome, you need a different narrative to align with. Now, there are several people on the planet that enjoy the narrative we are on. We're going to have to accept that fact. Okay? There are some people that need their Scarface Sky Daddy, binkies and blankies, and will not let that narrative go because it saves them. It doesn't, but that's what they believe. So they will continue to reproduce the narrative that is in their soul contracts, in their holy books, H. Instead of W, it's H, like, you know, Swiss cheese. So their holy books are their sacred soul contract, and they will continue to produce a narrative as long as their system aligns with any one of those narratives. They are whole textbooks. They get manufactured and they get manifested together. So if there's a little swiggle sentence that you don't like in there, you're still manifesting it by plugging into that narrative. If you want a new narrative, you got to write a new narrative. And if it has anything to do with the old narrative, you're going to bring the whole thing with you. That's why I am so leery of energy workers. I'm like, I don't think you know how this works, kids. Be careful. Comprehend that, like, how many times does this history need to repeat itself? How many times does there need to be civil, global wars, war on women, a war on children, a war? Yes, there's a war on children. Period. The end. We're not paying attention to the Epstein and Diddy file. Okay, religion is producing this narrative. Just because they didn't write the ages down in those textbooks didn't mean those particular narratives didn't have an age group. And it was significantly younger than 13. As in Mark 14:51, he was 8 years old, boys and girls. Big Lebowski. 8-year-olds, dude. Okay? Keep up. This is ridiculous at this point. Those children are being attacked because the narrative you're uplifting didn't register. Okay? Difficult thing to I get it. Find a dish towel and scream. Okay. So then you've got a war on the little ones. You've got a war on women. You've got a war on the planet. Resources and whatever else are completely gutting the planet, toxifying the planet, which is toxifying us. All of this includes the stuff that's in the Abrahamics, in the politics, in the science. The science is huge. The whole patriarchal system. is producing this massive amount of trying to get us extinct, okay? Or at least severely sick so they can control and manipulate us. What they didn't bank on is that we weren't going to be able to work, and now they're like, all right, well, we'll just starve them out. We'll starve them out. We'll make the food really expensive, and we'll cancel their jobs. We'll up their insurance because we know they're going to have to go in here shortly because we done be poisoning and everything. So you see how this works, boys and girls? Keep up. Okay, so do what you need to do for yourself. But if we want a new future that doesn't involve what we're having to wait around in right now, this is our opportunity to look at all these facets of life and say, maybe we find whatever the fuck is in our garden that grew this bullshit and pluck it out. Okay, create a nice burn pile for yourself and do what you got to do. But this is crucial time this week, especially with this Capricorn getting into the bones. The bones give your system the nutrients when you're not ingesting the right amount of nutrients. And the soil has been depleted of magnesium and vitamin B12, which says a lot about the state of the human condition at the moment. So, and those things, like, you need it shot. No amount of popping pill is going to help you. You get shot intravenously. Sad but true. So, when we have an opportunity like this one, and it is an opportunity, it feels like drudgery, and you want to be pissed off about it, and that's okay. Okay, so blow your steam off, get it written down on paper, and burn that too. But really do the work. Where did this come from? How did it get here? I don't even align with this. How the fuck? But you need to get into that subconscious undercurrent and really get it out of there. Really get it out of there. Like, cycle it through. How the fuck did this? And then ask yourself the questions. Do I really believe this? Do I honestly believe this? Where do I see this reflected back to me in society? Where are the people actually doing the things that I've been told that they're doing or they're not doing? Right? If you don't get real and honest with yourself, you're not going to be able to remove the programming. Okay? So say the person is doing the thing. You got so many freaking examples right now, it's pathetic. Pick a person. Pick a person. The person is doing the thing. Okay? Somehow, somewhere in me, I believe the person had the right to do the thing. That's a bitch. So the moment you... Subconscious undercurrent. If you don't sift through it right now, we're going to all suffer for it. So, somewhere, if you know about this story, somewhere in your system, believe that. Somewhere. I'm not saying you have direct access to it. I'm saying someone in your history planted it there and told you that it was truth and it was gospel. Blah, 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 blah. Okay. It doesn't matter how, what, when, or... but it's there. You got to find it. You got to look it in the face. You got to ask it some seriously difficult questions and then come to the realization if you believe this thing to be true or not. How was it allowed to stay there? And yes, I know that the answer is because if I were to discuss it with anybody on the outside of me, I was shut down. Right. So get a notepad. Dude, especially if you're this pigmentation, you're going to have to love notebooks, people. You're going to have to learn to love them. Because there ain't nobody going to listen to you. Not even your whitey McWhitey friends going to want to help you through this, okay? Because they don't want to look at it either. You're going to have to become best friends with your notebooks. But it's a good tactic. It's the best way to get it out of your system anyway, other than talk. Talk therapy doesn't do much other than it brings up the subject, but then you really do have to do the inner work to get to those spaces. And a lot of times it's energetic. You have to flow through that current and say, okay, this is where in my body, in my mind, in my soul, this somehow produced a safety, security, something in me that I deemed as service to me, service to my autonomy, service to my whatever the hell it was. At some point, if it's that deep, at some point it might have served some sort of belief you had about survival. Not about being saved, because nobody gonna be saved. That doesn't happen. Okay, nobody died for your sins. You have to turn around to the person you just fucked around and found out with and apologize to them. Not go, I'm sorry, Scarface, Sky Daddy, can I be excused, please? No, you cannot. No, you can the fuck not. You have to say sorry to the people that you've wronged. You have to do it. It's a requirement. If you don't do that, you're not going to be hanging on to something you don't have. Okay. When you don't have access to, because that energy will eventually just kind of consume you. This is where you get into the addict part, but that's a story for a different day. So you have the narrative and the undercurrent is running through you. So when you can get into, how did I come to this belief and how is it serving me? Because we don't create beliefs without, oh, it's servicing. Okay. This is why people believe in those narratives from the Abrahamics, is because they believe that it is some sort of service to them. Okay. So where's the actual lie? You got to find the lie. Because you ain't going to find truth over there. If you do, it's an illusion. So, they think I'm learning class. It's a good force me. Okay. That's how they get you hooked. Move on. Okay. The undercurrent. Where was it serving your existence at one point? It had to have. It had to have. It had to have set you safe in your own skin. And that's why you're holding on to it. The problem is that the safe in the skin has been completely obliterated to the point of it's such an illusion. We have a tarot deck that it has a Hierophant in it. So air, spirit is the O. Okay, that's the original symbol for spirit is the circle. Air, spirit, Phant. Phantom. Illusion. Heir to the eye of illusion. Heir to the spirit of illusion. It's all illusion. It's not real. It's a lie. And that's what we've been basing our entire structure on. That's what we've been committing ourselves to. An illusion. So, cultivate some of that. And create a space where new things can grow, where there's nothing from the past that we take forward with us. Not a thing. Just a space in the garden, okay? Just a little space. You don't have to make it the whole garden. You can if you want to, but just a space where you're like, okay, I am willing to explore new modalities of existing here other than what's been brought to me from the past. Because what we've carried forward has got us yet again in a lot of shit. Okay. We are co-creators here. We are manifestors, whether we want to admit it or not. Whether you're conscious of it or you're unconscious of it. It doesn't matter. We're all manifesting from our subconscious undercurrent. That's what rules the show. So rather than demonize the, what do you call that? Lizard brain, right? That's what's running the show. So get intimate with it. Say, okay, I'm here to support you. Thank you for keeping me alive. I honor your presence. Let's co-create this together rather than co-fear out of, ignorance and lack of autonomy and lack of sovereignty. Let's step into our full existence here and put this chariot in a direction of our choosing rather than Scarface Sky Daddy's choosing, or the devil's choosing, or our politicians choosing, or the White Walkers choosing. Whatever it is, okay? Find that space inside yourself that says, I am open to completely new, amazing, fantastic experiences. This is the art of alchemy. Taking what you have, looking at it for what it is. You cannot change. If you can't admit what this is that we're waiting around in right now, you're never going to change a dang thing. And that's why I made the video yesterday. You have to look at it. If you can't look at it, how are you going to change anything about it if you don't know what it's made up of? You can't. That's not alchemy. If you're like, oh, that one hurts, let's focus on something else. No, you have to get into what you just manifested, because if you don't want it to show up over here again in the future, you've got to take an honest look at its contents. Otherwise, you're just gonna do the insanity thing, which is weird. I don't know why we call it insanity, because wouldn't you be outside of sanity? Ka-tink? Anyway, I have a real problem with our logos. So whatever's showing up needs to be looked at, vetted through, sifted, transmuted, chemically pulled apart, so we can see and navigate more clearly when we're putting things in the petri dish of the future or our garden. Whatever the heck works for you, okay? Whatever that is, it has to be dissected. It has to be looked at, pulled apart, chemically, and going, okay, so clearly these little nuggets here are the sheer fuckery I've been holding on to unconsciously. Let's put them in the toxic waste bin and move forward in a more conscious manner. Okay, I'm trying to give you some metaphorical things to sift through, but it's all on the subconscious level. You have to get in there and get real and dirty, and you're gonna have to take a shower afterwards. And that's okay. That is the fuck okay. That's how we make change. That's how we make meaningful, real change. Okay? Dirty hands, clean soul. Boom, done. Okay? Alright. Is that it for this go around? Okay. I love you. And until next time, keep your flame.